Mary Roger stared at the fancy invitation in her hands. Gold letters sparkled against cream paper. Melissa's Sweet 16, come celebrate. Her daughter had spent weeks planning this party, talking about decorations and music non-stop. Mom, did you see my invitation? Melissa bounced into the kitchen, her blonde hair perfectly curled. It's beautiful, honey, Mary smiled. I'm so excited to celebrate with you and your friends. Melissa's face fell slightly. Oh, about that. I was thinking maybe you could just drop me off. You know, stay in the background. My friends might feel weird with parents around. Mary felt a small sting but nodded. She wanted Melissa's party to be perfect. Of course, whatever makes you happy. Thanks, Mom. You're the best. Melissa hugged her quickly before rushing upstairs to call her friends. Mary looked at the invitation again, wondering why she suddenly felt so left out. 2 days later, Mary was grocery shopping when she bumped into Mrs. Patterson, Melissa's friend Hannah's mother. Oh, Mary. How lovely to see you, Mrs. Patterson said, but her smile seemed forced. I heard about Melissa's party. Such a shame about your situation. My situation? Mary asked, confused. Mrs. Patterson looked uncomfortable. Well, Hannah mentioned that Melissa said you've been struggling financially. Don't worry, we've all been there. Times are tough for everyone these days. Mary's heart stopped. I'm sorry, what exactly did Melissa say? Oh dear, maybe I shouldn't have. Mrs. Patterson fidgeted with her purse. Hannah said Melissa told everyone you lost your job and can barely afford groceries. That's why the party is at your house instead of somewhere fancy. Mary felt the blood drain from her face. She forced a smile. There must be some misunderstanding. But deep down, she knew there wasn't. If you like our revenge stories, please subscribe for more. We drop powerful news stories every week, filled with truth, emotion, and justice. Don't miss the next one. And remember, some stories hurt, but they heal too. Subscribe now, and join the journey. That evening, Mary sat in her home office, staring at her computer screen. She hadn't lost her job, she owned a successful consulting business that she ran from home. She'd been deliberately quiet about her success, teaching Melissa the value of humility and hard work. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister Karen. Hey, I ran into Tom's wife at the mall. She said Melissa told everyone you're broke? What's going on? Mary's hands shook as she typed back. It's complicated. I'll call you later. More texts came in. Family, friends, neighbors, even her own mother had heard the rumors. Each message felt like a knife twisting deeper into her heart. How could her own daughter do this to her? Mary had sacrificed everything to give Melissa a good life, working long hours while maintaining their modest lifestyle by choice, not necessity. She looked around her simple but comfortable home, realizing that her daughter was ashamed of the life Mary had built for them. The next morning, Mary's best friend Amanda called. Mary, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it. Amanda's voice was serious. I overheard some girls at the coffee shop talking about Melissa's party. Mary's stomach dropped. What did they say? They were laughing about how Melissa's mom is pretending to be middle class but is actually broke. They said Melissa told them you shop at thrift stores and can only afford generic groceries. Mary closed her eyes. The thrift store shopping and generic brands were conscious choices to teach Melissa about money management and not being wasteful. There's more, Amanda continued gently. They said Melissa is embarrassed of you and wishes she had a normal mom with a real job. The words hit Mary like physical blows. She had always been proud of building her business from nothing, working from home to be available for Melissa. I'm so sorry, Mary. That girl doesn't know how lucky she is. If you like our revenge stories, please subscribe for more. We drop powerful news stories every week, filled with truth, emotion, and justice. Don't miss the next one. And remember, some stories hurt, but they heal too. Subscribe now, and join the journey? Mary needed answers. That afternoon, while Melissa was at school, she went into her daughter's room. She rarely invaded Melissa's privacy, but she had to understand how this had started. She found Melissa's laptop open on her desk. Her heart pounded as she scrolled through recent messages and social media posts. What she found made her sick. Screenshot after screenshot of Melissa complaining about their poor lifestyle. Messages to friends saying she was so embarrassed by her mom's loser job and their cheap house. One post read, "Ugh, my mom is so broke we can't even afford a real party venue. So embarrassing. At least my friends understand why I can't have nice things." Another message to her boyfriend Daniel, "My mom thinks working from home makes her successful but she's basically unemployed. I can't wait to get out of this dump." Mary's hands trembled as she took screenshots of everything, her heart breaking with each cruel word. Mary saved the evidence and closed the laptop, her mind racing back to when Melissa was younger. She remembered 7-year-old Melissa proudly telling her teacher, "My mommy works at home so she can always help me with homework." She remembered 10-year-old Melissa bragging to friends, "My mom is the smartest person in the world. She has her own business." When had that pride turned to shame? When had Mary's sacrifices become sources of embarrassment? Mary had turned down lucrative job offers that required travel or long office hours, choosing to build her consulting business from home so she could attend every school play, every soccer game, every parent-teacher conference. She'd driven a modest car and lived in a simple house, not because she couldn't afford better, but because she wanted to teach Melissa that happiness didn't come from material possessions. Now she realized that her daughter saw her choices as failures rather than sacrifices made out of love. The next day at the grocery store, Mary overheard 2 teenagers talking in the cereal aisle. "Did you hear about Melissa Rogers' party? Her mom is so broke they're having it in their backyard," one girl giggled. "I know, right? Melissa said her mom hasn't bought new clothes in like 2 years. So sad," the other replied. Mary stood frozen, holding a box of generic cereal, the same brand she'd always bought because it tasted exactly the same as the expensive version. "My mom would die if we were that poor. At least Melissa's friends are nice enough to still come to her pathetic party," the first girl continued. Mary wanted to disappear. She abandoned her cart and rushed to her car, tears streaming down her face. Her daughter had turned her into a joke, a source of pity and gossip for the entire town. She sat in her car, wondering how she'd face anyone ever again. But more importantly, how would she face her daughter? That night, Mary sat in her office until 3 a.m., thinking. She looked around at her successful business setup, 3 computer monitors, professional equipment, awards from satisfied clients on the walls. She opened her business files and stared at the numbers. 6-figure annual income. Savings account that could buy 3 fancy party venues. Investment portfolio that most people her age would envy. All of it hidden away because she'd wanted to raise a humble, grounded daughter. Instead, she'd raised someone who was ashamed of her. Mary made a decision. If Melissa wanted to be embarrassed by her broke mother, then maybe it was time to show her what broke really looked like compared to what they actually had. She pulled out her phone and started making calls. The party was in 5 days. That was plenty of time. Mary had spent 16 years protecting her daughter from judgment and spoiling. Now it was time for some tough love. If Melissa wanted to play games, Mary would show her how the game was really played. The next morning, Mary drove to downtown and parked outside a tall glass building. She walked into the lobby, her heels clicking confidently on the marble floor. "Mary Roger to see Mr. Harrison," she told the receptionist. James Harrison had been her lawyer for years, helping with her business contracts and finances. He smiled warmly as she entered his office. "Mary. Good to see you. How's business?" "Excellent, actually. But I need your help with something personal." Mary sat down and explained the situation. James listened carefully, occasionally shaking his head in disbelief. "So you want me to prepare documentation showing your actual financial status?" he asked. "Everything. Business income, investments, savings, property values. I want it official, legal, and undeniable. Mary, are you sure about this? It might be quite a shock for Melissa. Mary thought about the cruel messages, the public humiliation, the lies her daughter had spread. She made her choice when she decided to lie about our family. It's time she learned the truth. Mary spent the afternoon researching every person Melissa had invited to the party. She made a list of parents, siblings, and friends, everyone who had heard the lies about her being broke. She called Mrs. Patterson first. Hello, Mrs. Patterson. This is Mary Roger. I wanted to personally invite you and your husband to Melissa's party. I know there have been some misunderstandings about our family situation, and I'd like to clear those up. Oh, well, Mrs. Patterson stammered. Please come. I think you'll find it very enlightening. One by one, Mary called every parent who had heard the rumors. She invited them all personally, her voice sweet but determined. She also called relatives who lived nearby, people Melissa rarely saw but who had heard the gossip through the family grapevine. By evening, she had confirmed 30 additional adult guests for the party. Melissa would get her celebration, but it wouldn't be the one she expected. Mary smiled for the first time in days. The game had begun. On the morning of the party, Mary drove to the most expensive salon in town. I need the full treatment, she told the stylist. Hair, makeup, nails, everything. I have a very important event tonight. 3 hours later, she looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself. Her brown hair was styled in elegant waves, her makeup was flawless, and her nails were perfect. Next stop was the boutique where she'd been browsing for months but never bought anything. I need a dress that says, successful businesswoman, Mary told the saleswoman. Price is no object. She chose a stunning black dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent, along with matching shoes and jewelry. Her final stop was the luxury car dealership. I'd like to test drive that BMW, she said, pointing to the most expensive model on the lot. 2 hours later, she drove home in a brand new car, the lease papers tucked safely in her purse. The transformation was complete. Tonight, Melissa would meet the real Mary Roger. By 6 p.m., Melissa's party was in full swing. The backyard was decorated with twinkling lights, and music pumped from professional speakers Mary had rented. Melissa looked beautiful in her party dress, laughing with her friends and dancing with Daniel. For a moment, Mary felt sad that this confrontation was necessary. But then she heard Melissa talking to a group of her classmates by the snack table. Yeah, my mom tried to make this nice, but you can tell we're on a budget, Melissa said, gesturing at the decorations. At least the food is okay, even if it's just grocery store cake. Mary had actually spent over $1,000 on catering and decorations, but she deliberately chosen simple, elegant options. Your mom seems sweet, one friend said kindly. She tries, but she doesn't really understand how embarrassing it is to be poor, Melissa replied. That was the final straw. Mary checked her watch. The adult guests would arrive soon, and then the real party would begin. At 7:30 p.m., Mary made her entrance. She stepped onto the back patio in her designer dress, every hair in place, looking like she belonged on a magazine cover. The conversation stopped. Even the music seemed quieter. Melissa's mouth fell open. Mom? What are you wearing? I decided to dress up for your special day, sweetheart, Mary said sweetly. Her voice carried across the silent yard. Daniel whistled low. Mrs. Roger, you look amazing. The other teenagers stared in shock. This wasn't the dowdy, broke woman Melissa had described. Just then, the doorbell rang. Oh, that must be our other guests, Mary announced cheerfully. Melissa, honey, I took the liberty of inviting some additional people to your party. I hope you don't mind. Melissa's face went pale. What other guests? Mary's smile was radiant and dangerous. You'll see. She walked through the house to answer the door, leaving 50 teenagers staring after her in stunned silence. The real party was about to begin. Mary opened the front door to find the first wave of adult guests, Mrs. Patterson and her husband, the Johnsons from down the street, and Melissa's teacher Ms. Rodriguez. "Welcome. Thank you so much for coming," Mary greeted them warmly. "Please, come through to the backyard." As the adults filed through the house, Melissa rushed to intercept them. "Mom, what is this? You said it would just be my friends." Melissa's voice was panicked. "I thought it would be nice for the adults who've heard so much about our family to see how we really live," Mary replied calmly. More guests arrived, family members, neighbors, other parents from school. Soon, the backyard was filled with curious adults mixing with confused teenagers. Melissa grabbed Mary's arm. "Mom, please, you're ruining my party." "Ruining it? But sweetheart, I thought you wanted everyone to know about our situation. Now they can see for themselves." Mary's voice was still sweet, but her eyes were steel. Melissa realized with growing horror that her mother knew everything. Mary walked to the center of the patio and gently tapped a spoon against her glass. "Excuse me, everyone. May I have your attention, please?" The crowd quieted, all eyes on Mary. She looked absolutely radiant, confident, and successful. "I wanted to thank you all for coming to celebrate Melissa's birthday. I also wanted to address some rumors that have been circulating about our family." Melissa's face went white. Several teenagers looked confused, while the adults shifted uncomfortably. Mary pulled out a large manila envelope. "Recently, I've heard that some people believe I'm struggling financially. That I've lost my job, that we're barely getting by." She opened the envelope and pulled out official-looking documents. "I thought tonight would be the perfect time to set the record straight." Melissa took a step backward, her heart pounding. Around the yard, people leaned forward, sensing drama. Mary's smile never wavered as she prepared to drop the bomb that would change everything. Mary held up the first document. "This is my business license for Roger Consulting Services, established 12 years ago." She held up another paper. "This is a letter from my accountant, confirming my annual income for the past 3 years." Several adults gasped as they saw the numbers. "And this," Mary continued, holding up a bank statement, "shows our current savings and investment accounts." The teenagers were starting to understand that something big was happening, even if they couldn't see the documents clearly. Mrs. Patterson's mouth fell open. "Mary, I had no idea." "Of course you didn't," Mary said graciously. "Because I believe in living modestly and teaching my daughter the value of money. I never felt the need to flaunt our success." She looked directly at Melissa, who was now crying. "Unfortunately, my humility was mistaken for poverty by someone who should have known better." The crowd was dead silent, everyone staring between Mary and Melissa. "Someone who has been telling lies about our family for months." Daniel stepped forward, confusion clear on his face. "Mrs. Roger, I don't understand," Melissa said. "What did Melissa say, Daniel?" Mary asked gently. Daniel looked between Melissa and Mary, clearly uncomfortable. "She said you lost your job and that you guys were really struggling. That's why she couldn't afford nice clothes or go on trips with us." Mary nodded sadly. "And did you believe that, even though you've been to our house many times? Even though you've seen my home office and all my business equipment?" Daniel's face reddened as he realized he'd been fooled. I thought maybe it was old stuff, or you were pretending. Or maybe," Mary said softly, "someone wanted you to believe we were poor so she could get sympathy and attention." Several of Melissa's friends were now staring at her with shocked expressions. One girl whispered loudly, "Melissa, why would you lie about that?" Melissa couldn't answer. She stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, watching her social life crumble in real time. Hannah Patterson stepped forward, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Melissa, my mom felt so sorry for you that she bought your birthday present and made me give up my allowance to chip in for your party decorations." Other teenagers began murmuring angrily as they realized how they'd been manipulated. I shared my lunch with you for weeks because you said your mom couldn't afford groceries, another friend added. But not everyone turned on Melissa. Her best friend Chloe moved to stand beside her. Maybe Melissa had her reasons, Chloe said quietly. Maybe she felt pressured or something. Mary looked at Chloe with genuine appreciation. That's very loyal of you, Chloe. A true friend stands by you even when you make mistakes. Then Mary's expression grew more serious. But lying about your family to get sympathy and attention isn't just a mistake. It's a betrayal of everyone who cared about you. Chloe's face fell as the weight of what Melissa had done truly hit her. Even loyalty had its limits. Mary walked closer to Melissa, her voice carrying clearly across the silent yard. For 16 years, I have worked my heart out to provide for you. I built a successful business from nothing so I could work from home and be there for every moment of your life. Her voice remained calm, but emotion crept in around the edges. I chose to live simply so you would understand that happiness doesn't come from expensive things. I wanted you to be humble, kind, and grateful. Several adults in the crowd nodded approvingly. Instead, you decided that my choices made you ashamed. You told everyone I was a failure, that we were poor, that I was an embarrassment. Melissa sobbed harder, but Mary continued. You turned my love into a joke and my sacrifices into sources of pity. You made our family a laughingstock because you wanted sympathy. Mary's voice grew stronger. Well, now everyone knows the truth. I am successful, we are financially secure, and the only thing poor about this family is your character. The silence that followed was deafening. Melissa finally found her voice, but it came out as a desperate scream. I never meant for it to go this far. I just wanted people to feel sorry for me. The raw honesty of her confession shocked everyone. All my friends have these perfect families with perfect jobs and perfect houses, and we just seemed so boring. I didn't think you'd ever find out. Melissa cried. And it worked. People were so nice to me, giving me things and inviting me places because they felt sorry for me. The crowd murmured disapprovingly. Several teenagers looked disgusted. But I love you, Mom. I never meant to hurt you. Mary shook her head sadly. Loving someone means protecting them, not throwing them under the bus for social points. Melissa's world was crashing down, and everyone she cared about was watching it happen. The teenagers began whispering among themselves, and their judgment was swift and harsh. That's so messed up, one boy said loudly. How could you lie about your own mom? My parents would kill me if I ever did something like that, a girl added. I gave you my babysitting money because I thought you needed it. Hannah said angrily. Daniel shook his head in disgust. Melissa, I can't believe you did this. Mrs. Roger is amazing, and you made her sound like a loser. Even some of the adults were openly discussing Melissa's behavior. What kind of child lies about their own family? That poor woman, having to deal with this embarrassment. I feel so foolish for pitying them. Mary watched her daughter realize that her lies hadn't just hurt their family, they had destroyed her reputation and friendships. Sometimes the consequences of our choices are harsher than we expect, Mary said quietly. Melissa looked around at all the disappointed faces and understood that some damage couldn't be undone. Her sweet 16 had become a nightmare, and it was entirely her own fault. Daniel walked up to Melissa, his face a mask of disappointment and anger. I defended you to my friends when they said you were acting weird about money, he said coldly. I told them you were just humble and didn't like talking about personal stuff. Melissa reached for his hand, but he stepped back. I even asked my dad to give you a job at his store because I thought you needed the money. He said no because he doesn't hire teenagers, but I kept bugging him because I thought I was helping my girlfriend's struggling family. The hurt in his voice made several people wince. You made me look like an idiot, Melissa. You made me feel sorry for a situation that didn't exist. Daniel, please, I can explain. Explain what? That you're a liar? That everything you told me about your family was fake? He shook his head. I don't even know who you really are." Without another word, Daniel walked out of the party. Several other friends followed him, leaving Melissa standing in the middle of her ruined celebration. As more guests began to leave, Mary found herself surrounded by the adults who had stayed. "Mary, I owe you an apology," Mrs. Patterson said sincerely. "I should never have gossiped about your family." "We all made assumptions," added Ms. Rodriguez. "I'm just sorry this had to be so public." Mary nodded graciously. "Thank you all for coming. I hope this clears up any confusion." As the adults offered their support and apologies, Mary looked across the yard at Melissa, who stood alone by the decorations. Most of the teenagers had left. The few who remained were packing up their things and making awkward excuses. Chloe was the last friend to approach Melissa. She hugged her briefly and whispered, "I hope you figure out how to fix this." Then she too walked away. The party was over. The decorations still twinkled, the music still played, but the celebration had died. Mary had gotten her revenge, but looking at her broken daughter, she wondered if the price had been too high. The next morning, Mary found Melissa sitting at the kitchen table, still in her party dress, staring at her phone. "Everyone's talking about it," Melissa said without looking up. "It's all over social media. Pictures, videos, everything." Mary poured herself coffee and sat down across from her daughter. 23 missed calls from friends. 47 messages. Most of them saying they never want to see me again. "I'm sorry it came to this, Melissa." Melissa finally looked at her mother. "Are you? Because it seemed like you enjoyed humiliating me in front of everyone." Mary considered this carefully. "I enjoyed showing people who I really am, yes. But I didn't enjoy watching you suffer." "Then why did you do it?" "Because you needed to understand that actions have consequences. That lying about people you love isn't just wrong, it's destructive." Melissa put her head in her hands. "I lost Daniel. I lost most of my friends. Everyone thinks I'm a horrible person." "Are you?" Mary asked gently. Melissa looked up, tears in her eyes. "I don't know anymore." 6 months later, Mary sat in the same kitchen, but everything had changed. Melissa had spent the time working to rebuild her reputation and relationships. She'd apologized to everyone, friends, family, even strangers who had heard the lies. Some forgave her, others didn't. She'd also gotten a part-time job and donated her earnings to charity, wanting to understand the value of money she'd taken for granted. "I got accepted to volunteer at the community center," Melissa announced, coming home from school. "That's wonderful, honey. They need help with their financial literacy classes. I thought, maybe I could teach kids about making good choices with money." Mary smiled. "I think you'd be good at that." Melissa sat down beside her mother. "I'm sorry it took me so long to understand what you were trying to teach me. I'm sorry I had to teach you so harshly." "No," Melissa shook her head. "I needed to learn. I just wish I hadn't hurt so many people along the way." Mary hugged her daughter. "The best thing about hitting rock bottom is that the only way to go is up." They sat together in comfortable silence, both of them older and wiser than they'd been 6 months ago. The lesson had been learned, the relationship rebuilt, and the future looked brighter than ever. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more powerful narratives, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what part hit you the hardest. Thanks for watching.